I'm John Geaver for MedPage Today at the American Diabetes Association meeting in San Francisco. The organization is unveiling a new measure of long-term glycemic control in diabetes, estimated average glucose, which can be calculated from the conventional A1C percentage with a simple formula. The most important step in the rollout was presented here, a validation study involving more than 500 patients that showed estimated average glucose closely tracked to actual average glucose levels over a 3-month period. Dr. Robert Heine of VU Medical Center in Amsterdam helped conduct the study and advocated for the widespread clinical use of estimated average glucose, or EAG.
The whole idea behind this study is to simplify education in clinical practice. If you are dealing with chemists and different organizations, you always have to end with a compromise. So now, as Dr. Horton indicated, 3 numbers will be reported, but at the end of the day, we really hope that just 1 number will be applied in clinical practice. That's the EAG. Just to bring you into a clinical setting, just imagine a newly diagnosed diabetes patient. He will need to learn, or she has to learn, how to inject insulin or to use other blood glucose lowering agents, has to learn to apply home blood glucose monitoring, needs to understand the numbers which are produced, either in milligram per deciliter or in millimoles per liter, understand the notion of hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia, and on top of that, the patient will learn that these glycemic targets for home glucose monitoring are set to achieve the target values for HbA1c, or as you call it here in the US, A1c. Extremely complicated story. So the patient will ask, well, what is this A1c? Well, then you have to start to explain, well, you have hemoglobin, it's the red color in your erythrocyte, and part of this big protein, there will glucose be attached, and the amount of glucose attached to this big protein reflects your glycemic status over the 8 to 12 weeks. It's a technical story and really doesn't have to do very much with diabetes therapy. When the patient asks, well, what's my A1C? Then you happily tell them, well, you're almost on target, it is 7.1%. And they said, well, my mean blood glucose level was about 8.5, so that can't be right. So then you have to explain, well, it's a different number, it's a different value, and it really doesn't relate to that number you are measuring, but you have to apply some algorithm. So it is a very complicated story. Now we at least have an algorithm where we can report this HbA1c in a number which is understood by the patient, but it now truly reflects the average glucose over those 8 to 12 weeks. So if we apply this number in a sensible way in teaching, then patients can relate what they are doing at home to what we are doing in the clinical chemistry lab.
But a conclusion of the study was that the ADAG study has clearly demonstrated a sufficiently tight correlation between hemoglobin A1c and an accurate measurement of chronic average glucose to provide a regression equation to translate hemoglobin A1c values into an estimated average glucose. And EAG provides an average glucose value in the same units as what we have our patients do when they do their self-blood glucose monitoring.
Dr. David Nathan of Massachusetts General Hospital explained how EAG is likely to be introduced into ordinary clinical practice.
We think that when we report back the A1C, which will now have an average glucose, that the patient will much better understand how that relates to their day-to-day measurements. Because instead of being given the 7%, but my blood glucose this morning was 140, they will hear back from the physician that your A1C is 7. That, by the way, is approximately 150 milligrams per deciliter. If you want to lower that a little bit, you need to get your glucose levels down by 10 points to 140, and then we hope that the average glucose level that is reported will similarly fall to 140, as opposed to this percentage, milligrams, millimolar. It'll all be in the same unit. What will happen will be that the manufacturers will actually put in the software into their machines. I mean, so like most people don't make these devices in their home. They're supplied by manufacturers, many of them. And the manufacturers will start by including the software so that the calculation will be done presumably automatically by the machine. So it depends, I think, when the next, they'll have to upgrade the software, they'll have to start as new hardware is supplied, it'll happen. So I think it's going to be rolled out over the next, hopefully relatively brief period of time, but it could take upwards of a year or several years for that to happen, I think.
To recap, a new measure of long-term glycemic control may make patient education easier, leading to better patient outcomes in diabetes. I'm John Geaver, MedPage Today.